Hi everyone, welcome back to the Pro MMA Betting Podcast. Sorry for the hiatus I had, but back for this week's show. I'm going to try and bang out the podcast every week for the remainder of the year. I think we've only got 1 week off between now and the final show on, I think it's the 18th. I think there's a week off at the end of November, unless that's changed and they've scheduled an event since last time I looked. So we're going to have a busy end to the year. 15 fights on this card, so there's a lot to get through. I'm going to blow through the fights quickly because there's so many to get through. I can't spend 5-10 minutes on every fight. I'll be waffling on forever. Just to remind everyone, this is a premium service, or I do offer a premium service to paying members where we offer a pre-betting and live betting service. All bets are tracked. You can view the tracking on the website prommmabetting.com. On the homepage, you'll see 3 icons. One to betmma.tips, and there's 2 different icons for betting.gs. That's where all the bets are tracked and recorded. So everything transparent, everything recorded. We offer weekly, monthly, yearly subscriptions and 6 monthly. Most members are with us for the year. You've got to be in it for the long haul. It's a bit like the stock market betting on MMA. There's peaks and troughs, good periods, bad periods. And you just got to trust that you will come out in the black over the course of the 12 months. There's a lot of shows to bet on, a lot of live betting as well, live betting on boxing as well as the UFC. So there's normally action pretty much every week. So if you're interested in signing up for the service, memberships are available on the website. Any questions, please feel free to hit me up. I'm on Twitter at Pro MMA Betting. DMs are open, so any questions you can put them there. Just to remind everyone, this is a betting podcast. It's not like most of the other podcasts where the guys are just picking who they think is going to win. I will look at the value. I will pick where I feel there is value more often than not. It's a general rule of thumb. It's not set in stone, but I don't just pick necessarily who I think is going to win. I will go with the value. If the value says someone is going to win 3 times out of 10, and I think it's more like 4.5 times out of 10, then I'm likely to pick the underdog because that's how you win on betting. You've got to beat the implied probability. So that's what we look at when we go through the bets, or through the fights rather. We look at it from a betting perspective. This is a betting podcast. So if you're someone that likes to bet on the fights, probably a podcast for you to listen to. I have started recording as well my underdog pick percentages. As regular listeners will know, I do pick a lot of underdogs, and I've had real good success since I've been doing this podcast. But if you look at the results since I've been recording them as well, we pick underdogs at a very high percentage. Now, I class them as an underdog based on what the odds are when I do this podcast. Sometimes the fighters will flip to favourite by fight day, but the way I record it is it's based on the odds when I do this podcast. So if anyone's an underdog now, they will and win, they will all lose. If I pick them as the underdog, it will be recorded as an underdog win or loss prediction, even if they do move to the favourite status by fight day. So let's jump into the card. Let's move through it as quickly as we can. So first fight on the card, we've got Emily Whitmire taking on Hannah Goldie. I think both are moving up to 125 here. Emily Whitmire, I think she's had quite a lot of fights fall through over the last year or so. Let's have a quick look. Yeah, 3 fights she's had fallen through this year. So we haven't seen her for just over a year. Emily's... I haven't taped this one yet. I'm actually going to have a look at this one today. But from memory, I do remember Emily's fight with Jamie Moore where she won the decision. Pretty sure she had struck her for most of the fight and then actually took her down in round 3. Albu, she took down straight away, secured a choke. Amanda Ribas, she was a bit overmatched there. Pretty much got dominated. She did reverse position in the first round. I think Ribas had her back and she managed to reverse the position and spend the last minute and a half maybe of round 1 on top. But apart from that, had no success. And then Poliana Viana, she got caught in an armbar very quickly. So she does have a decent grappling credentials. That's the ace in the hole here against Hannah Goldie, is if she can get her grappling going. On the feet, I'm going to tape it because I just want to see if I can get a feel for this fight on the feet. Pre-tape, I feel that Hannah's maybe got the advantage on the feet, but Emily's going to want to get this fight to the floor, I would have thought, to take advantage of Hannah's likely weakness there. Hannah's coming off a loss. I've not actually seen that fight. I didn't see this fight card, so I've not seen her last fight against, it was the Romanian girl, Diana Belbita. I've not seen it. I think Belbita outstruck her over 3 rounds, but Belbita's not a bad striker. She's a bit of a savage. This is definitely a better fight on the feet for Goldie, but whether she can remain upright, I don't know. I did have a look at Fight Metric a week or so ago. I never ended up taking the fight, and on the Fight Metric it said she had been taken down a few times in different fights. I think the Miranda Granger fight was mainly stand-up, so I might have to go back to the Kaylee Robbins fight just to see a takedown defence. That was a couple of years ago now. So I'm going to take that one after. If my opinion changes, I will change my prediction. But the odds are fairly even. Emily's a slight favourite, about -120. I'm going to go with Emily here, just because my memory and gut instinct is saying she can get this fight to the floor and do enough on the ground and on the feet. I don't think she's overly outmatched. I think there will be a bigger difference on the mat, or a bigger advantage on the mat to Emily than there will be an advantage to Goldie standing. I think on the feet it will still be pretty close. So I'm going to go with Emily here, -120. You know my rule of low-level women's MMA, always bet the dog, but it's basically a pick-em. There's no real dog here, so I don't see any advantage just playing the dog at +100. So I'll go with Emily, but I will let you know if my opinion changes on this fight. Second fight on the card. Just waiting for it to come up, guys. Gustavo Lopez taking on Haile Alateng. Lopez, I don't mind his striking. Pretty aggressive on the feet. He's got some power. If you go and watch a couple of his fights before he came into the UFC against, I think it was Joey Rukit, if I'm saying that correctly, and then the rematch with Jose Alday, they were bad knockouts. Knocked him out. Nasty power. Took a fight in his UFC debut against Merab on short notice. Showed good heart in the fight, but pretty much got dominated. Then he got a dominant win over a late notice Anthony Burchak, and then he's coming off a loss to Adrian Yanez where he got stopped in round 3. Alateng is coming off that loss to Casey Kenny. Very one-sided loss there. I don't think anyone really saw that coming, especially how one-sided it was. He really got beaten up in that fight. Struggled with a southpaw stance, just got kind of kicked to death in it really badly. Before that, he got a split decision win over Ryan Benoit. Ryan started really well in that fight. You go and watch the first round, you'll probably be scratching your head wondering how Benoit is going to mess this up. But Alateng came back into it. He started getting his wrestling going, and then he got a win before that over Batgirl, who is a solid fighter, a solid striker. And again, leaned on his wrestling late in that fight. I think against Benoit, he didn't really go to the wrestling until round 3. And then against Batgirl, it was 1-1 going into round 3 and leaned on the wrestling in round 3. He's got a solid wrestling background. I think he was like a national champion in China. So he is a good wrestler. And it might be the difference here against Lopez is his ability to mix in the wrestling. He's solid enough on the feet. He's a little bit of a one-trick pony. I think it's the right hand that he particularly relies on, but he does time it really well. But whether he's going to be able to get that going against Gustavo, I imagine he's going to try and be aggressive here, but I think it'll be close on the feet. But I just think the wrestling of Alateng is the X factor here, and if he's smart, he's going to mix it up. So I'm going to go with Alateng. Probably the fight's probably going to go long. Probably going to see this going to a decision, I would have thought. But he's only a slight favourite. If you like Alateng, just play the money line. There's no need to get overly cute on this fight. The over, which I think will cash here, -200. I really like playing overs at that kind of price. So Alateng's the pick for me. Next, I think it's Impa Kasinyan taking on Carlston Harris. So Harris, I bet him in his UFC debut. He had me sweating a little bit. He got wobbled on the feet against Aguilera, but he came back and wobbled Aguilera and then made Aguilera panic shoot, and then he locked up the Darce choke that he's pretty good with. He's quite rangy on the feet. He's long. His style though he reminds me a bit of Brazilian Cowboy. He will come out and he's a grinder. Now his takedowns aren't anything special, but he will look to put you on the fence and grind you on the fence. He's pretty happy doing that. Impar has moved down to 170 now. At his last fight at 170, where he got the win against Sasha early in the second round. So he's going to be physically strong. I came away it was hard for me to get a read on this. Now, Impar has historically leaned on the clinch as well. So I was trying to get a read on how I think the clinch is going to play out here. And I honestly think they're going to cancel each other out. Impar was, he wasn't dominating Sasha in the clinch like I thought he was going to, especially moving down from 185. It was a bit nip and tuck in the clinch. And then Harris as well against Aguilera. A couple of times he did manage to close the distance and get the clinch against Aguilera. Aguilera managed to reverse him and disengage pretty easily. So I don't really see either guy dominating in the clinch here. They both like working the position, but I think this fight's going to be won in the striking realm. And I'm going to lean with. I think I'm going to lean with Impar here. Now I understand why money's coming on Harris. He was a bigger underdog. We're now getting down to. The first three fights are incredibly closely lined. They're not far short of being pick'ems. And this one's the same. Bit more money's coming on Harris. Impar's down to minus 120. So I'm going to go with Impar. I feel a little bit uncomfortable that even though they are very slight favourites, I've picked favourites for the first three fights of the card because they're not all going to win. There's going to be an underdog that's going to win in there. But they're such slight underdogs, if Harris, Lopez or Goldie were plus 130, plus 140, I'd be picking one of them. But I just feel I feel the lines are pretty accurate. I feel all the favourites are probably justified as slight favourites. These lines do feel really accurate to me. But I think this is going to be a close fight, Harris and Impar. But I just feel Impar's probably going to do enough on the feet with the clinch being cancelled out, in my opinion. Still a little question mark about Impar going hard for 3 rounds because he's cutting down to 170 now. His last fight ended quickly, but he looked fine in the last fight going into round 2. So he's at Sanford as well now. He was for his last camps. You've got to think he's making improvements there. So I'll go with Impar, but like I said, from a betting perspective, I'm finding it difficult to find value on these first 3 fights. Next, Erin Blanchfield against Sarah Alpar. Now, I know I said bet the dog in low-level women's MMA, but I do hold Erin in quite high esteem. I think she's got a bright future. Sarah's cutting down to 125, I think, for the first time in her career here. She's coming off well, let's be honest, it was a poor showing against Jessica Rose Clark. She got beaten up and stopped. Is physicality going to be enough for her against Erin here, coming down in weight? She's going to be the bigger girl. She's a bit of a grinder. I don't think it is. I just think Erin's just going to be too good for her, basically. She got a nice head kick knockout over Leonardo in Invicta. She's coming off a win over Brogan Walker Sanchez, decision win. She had a very close fight with Tracy Cortez, who is a good wrestler, who we know from the UFC that a lot of people think Erin should have got that decision. It boils down to I think it was round 1 where she got taken down, but she caught Tracy in, I think it was like a triangle or an armbar for a big portion of the first round, and people feel Erin should have got the decision based on that. And she's beaten Kay Hansen as well, who we've also seen in the UFC. 2 solid fighters in the UFC that she's had very competitive close fights with. So I've got to go with Erin here. But it's always tough to pull the trigger on lower level women's MMA at minus 300. So from a betting angle, I don't like it. People are probably putting Erin in parlays and whatnot. Not really my style, but if it works for you, it works for you. But I am gonna pick Erin here. She's an interesting prospect to watch coming into the UFC, and she's probably going to go pretty far. So looking forward to her debut. Next fight on the card, and we picked 4 favourites in a row, guys. This isn't good. We need to pick an underdog soon. I'm already feeling that an underdog is going to hit by now. And I'm definitely not picking an underdog here. We've got Montel Jackson taking on JP Buys. Montel's unplayable. People, like I said, with Ariane, people are probably parlaying him up and whatnot. JP, he didn't look good in that UFC debut, did he? Let's be honest, against Bruno. He's got smashed on the feet. He's got a wrestling background. We did see Montel struggle with Brett Johns, but I feel Brett Johns is a pretty solid fighter, well established. I don't, there's something a little bit shaky about Montel. It's kind of hard to put your finger on it, but he did have that loss to Brett Johns where he ended up getting wrestled. He's very tall for the weight, so there's a lot of leg to go at when you're shooting takedowns on someone like Montel in the bantamweight division. But I just think there's levels here. I think JP's definitely going to struggle on the feet. He's going to struggle with the power. And if he can even get the wrestling going, I'm not even convinced. And I remember watching some JP fights before he made his UFC debut, and I think I can't remember where he fought. He fought I think it was a Russian, and it just looked to me like he was slowing down and he took the easy way out. That's what it looked like to me, and I don't like seeing that in a fighter. I don't like. He did show toughness against Bruno, to be fair to him, but how lopsided that was as well. It's not a good look. So I've got to pick Montel, but from a betting angle, I don't know. The over/under is set at 1.5. Last time I looked, it was. I assume it still is. It's set at -1, -150. If we just bring up Montel's record, he did put Kelleher away quickly, didn't he? Just Estrada quickly. Felipe Colares, he done very well to go the distance, took a beating. Kind of played it safe against Sukumtov, but I think he had Sukumtov hurt, and Sukumtov, as far as anything's changed since he left UFC, has never been stopped. So, it's hard to be confident in betting the over there, but likewise, it's the under's not, under at 1.5 at bantamweight doesn't fill me with joy. Did go over against Silva. He got stopped by Joby Sanchez. It was a long time ago, but and the fight with the Russian, where is it? Where he got the win. It was deep in round 3, but the tide had definitely turned in that fight. He was on his way to losing. So yeah, I've got to go Montel. I've really got no kind of opinion on that fight from a betting angle. If you put him in parlays, then good luck. I think he wins. Let's bring up the next fight. I think it might be Gravely. No, it's Dakota Bush taking on Zhu Rong. So Zhu's made some changes since the UFC debut. It was a disappointing performance in that fight. He just didn't get started. He didn't get going until round 3. I don't know what he was doing the first round. Then he showed some bad fight IQ in round 2, taking him down, slamming him into guillotines and getting caught in submissions. Cost him the round. Did wake up in round 3, got going. I do like Zhu. He's got a great frame for the division. He has got good boxing, but I don't know whether he's a bit reliant on his power and he's got away with it outside the UFC. But it's not going to work in the UFC because when you get to this level, you're just not going to be knocking everyone out. These guys are tough. They're durable. You're going to have to win fights by decision, and you're not going to win fights by decision if you're not throwing with volume. So that's if that's a potential issue for him moving forward, then it's going to hold him back. Because especially at lightweight, lightweights obviously they can knock people out. They have power at that weight class, but it's not like the heavyweight division where the variables are so high and one punch can change the outcome of any fight. It's harder at 155 to be stopping everyone. So he needs to work on the volume. He is at ATT now. I think he's been there about 6 months. I think that's a good move for him. So he's coming in here against Dakota Bush. Dakota Bush coming off a short notice UFC debut against Austin Hubbard where he gassed out. I'm going to go with Zoo here as the underdog. So let's go with the first underdog, plus 115. I think, I don't think there's great value on that. I think it is a pick 'em kind of fight. It's hard to get a read on Dakota Bush. I went back, you watch the Jaleel Willis fight. He got 30-27 in that fight. But Jaleel did wrestle him. He quickly took down Del Rosario and choked him out. Austin Clem, a quick win. And then, decent start against Austin Hubbard. Probably nicked the first round, but then he slowed down. But, he did take it on short notice. But, when you look at Dakota's record, he hasn't won wasn't won a decision for 4.5 years. 2 of his first 3 fights were decision wins. 1 was a split, 1 a unanimous. And then since then, he's lost the 2 fights, or the 3 fights that have gone to a decision. Does have a win over someone in round 3. But he's got a number of round 1 victories. So, I do have question marks over the gas tank here, but Zoo has to get going quicker. Dakota will come out quick like he did against Hubbard, and Zoo's got to react. He has to react. I'm not betting it, and the line's not wide enough for me to bet it. I need to see improvements from Zoo before I start betting him, because there's nothing more frustrating than betting on someone. Look, if they go out on their shield, fine, you lose the bet, but there's nothing more frustrating than betting on someone when they aren't throwing anything. They're just standing there. So I just can't put money on him. But I've got to make a prediction because it's a betting prediction podcast, and as he's the plus 115, I do think he's got potential. But as I say, if that volume's an issue, and Dakota's never been KO'd. He's been the distance with Bryce Logan, Jaleel Willis, Austin Hubbard, all solid fighters. So it's definitely not a given that he can go in and put Dakota away here. So he has to up the volume, and you've got to assume that's something they've been working on at American Top Team. But if he is a bit of a low volume fighter, it's very hard to correct that. That's just kind of ingrained in you. But maybe it was jitters. I don't know. I haven't gone back and watched these regional fights. I did watch them for his debut, but I haven't gone back and watched them here because I just knew after that first fight, his UFC debut, that I wouldn't be betting him because it's not a good loss on your record against a lower level UFC guy. So I'll go with Zoo as the underdog here, but I'm definitely not betting it. I need to see what he can produce. Next fight, I think we are on the Tony Gravely fight next. It's Nate Maness taking on Tony Gravely. So Nate, he's got a solid record. He's 13-1. I remember taping Nate because I had a massive bet on Ray Bulk against Nate, but the fight never happened. I think Bulk pulled out as he does, hence why he got cut. And I think, did his fight get rescheduled, or did Johnny Munoz step in? I can't remember. But anyway, I watched his fight with Taylor Lapalus when I was taping the Bulk fight, and Taylor's he's a very solid fighter. I'd be surprised if he's not back in the UFC at some point. But yeah, it was very one-sided. Taylor just dominated the fight and stopped him with a body shot in the 3rd round. The Johnny Munoz fight was a rough round 1 for him. He probably got saved by the bell. He was in big trouble underneath Johnny. I think he had mount and was pounding away. It was one of them situations where the ref was about to step in. But Johnny struggled with takedowns in 2 and 3, slowed down. I think he only got 1 more takedown, which was the last minute of the 2nd round. But besides that, the rest of the fight pretty much played out in the clinch, where Maness just worked him basically. Then he took on Luke Sanders. He had a rough round 1 there as well. Luke, very dominant, but then Luke just does what he does and he flaked out, just full dumb. Just, gave Maness the only chance he had by exchanging in the pocket with him. He got caught and hurt and ended up getting choked out. So, he's got some grit about him because he's had 2 rough round 1s in the UFC and he's come back and won both fights. I'm not convinced about his takedown defence. I can't remember the takedown defence pre-UFC, but I had a big bet on Ray Borg. Was I relying on Ray Borg's takedowns and betting blind against Nate's takedown defence? I don't think I would have been, because it was a big bet for me. But from the UFC, we have seen, Johnny took him down in round 1, and he was in big trouble, couldn't get back up, was on the verge of being stopped. And then he did get taken down again in round 2 towards the end of the round, and again didn't get back up. And the reason I'm emphasising this is Tony Gravely is a wrestler. He trains at ATT now. I think that's a good move for him. If you look at his record, he's got a lot of losses by submission. I think he's been caught from top position a few times, because he does go to his wrestling. I don't see that being a threat here against Nate. If Nate wins this fight, it's going to be on the feet. Or if he does sub in like a club and sub type thing, but Nate has to win this fight on the feet. Tony, he's working on his stand-up, but I do give Nate the advantage on the feet here. But Tony's has got very good wrestling. I mean, his top control's not brilliant, but I'm not sure if Nate can get back to his feet if he's taken down, from what I've seen. And, like I said, against Johnny, he was in trouble at the end of the first round, and Gravely will work to advanced position. He will look for submission. So, Nate's not safe per se on the mat here. So the line's at about -200 now. I think it's roughly where it should be. But I just see Tony coming in here and getting his wrestling going. Now he has slowed down a little bit. He did against Brett Johns, it's a very high paced fight, and he did against the Brazilian he fought as well. But I don't know if Nate's got the scrambling ability of either of them. Can he make Tony work at a high pace, or is Tony going to get a takedown? And he's, 1 or 2 takedowns a round is going to be enough for him just to ride the round out on top, which isn't going to tire him out. The tiring out comes from constantly having to hit takedowns, a guy get back to his feet, having to work for the takedown again. And you did see him slow in both them fights. So Nate either needs to just land something before he gets taken down, or he's going to need to have some good get-ups here, work back to his feet, and for Tony to really slow down. But I just think Tony's wrestling is going to be too much here, so I'm going with Tony to win this fight. Next fight on the card, we have 15-fight card. Remember this one, guys, so it's a long one. We've got Panny Kianzad taking on Raquel Pennington. I like this fight, looking forward to it. I think the difference in this fight is going to be Raquel's well-roundedness as an MMA fighter. I do like Panny. She's got good boxing for women's MMA, but she's very, very boxing-centric. It's the only thing she really brings to the table. In a pure boxing match with Raquel, I don't even necessarily give her the advantage. Raquel's got good boxing. She's got good hands. Especially when she lets them go. She held her own on the feet with Irene Aldana. The first fight with Holly Holm, not the Holly Holm rematch where Holly just clinched her for 3 rounds. But in the first fight, she started a bit slow, but she really warmed into it, and she was out striking Holly. Raquel's got solid boxing. But what I also like about Raquel is she would do good work in the clinch. Now, Panny struggled in the clinch. She struggled in the clinch against Macy Kaysen, and she also struggled in the clinch against Julie Avila. So Raquel, I think, will look to exploit that. She's not just going to stand, and Raquel will look for takedowns as well. Now, her takedowns aren't the best, but she will work for them. She will look for them, and Panny's takedown defense isn't bulletproof. I remember Betchko Hare taking her down, and Panny's last fight against Alexis Davis does not fill me with confidence. The line was too wide for me, so I didn't bet Panny. And the only path to victory I gave for Alexis was hitting takedowns. But Alexis gets a lot of takedowns off cool kicks, and Panny doesn't throw kicks. So I didn't really see Alexis getting takedowns. And I just thought on the feet she was going to be picked apart and beaten up. But he didn't have. That fight could have gone either way. I know the scorecards are unanimous. I think one judge had it, or even 2 judges had it 30-27, 129-28, but very generous scoring and I remember the live betting line. I think Alexis closed on live bet as the favourite. Look, I'm not saying it was a bad decision, but the fight was very close, and I really wasn't expecting that. If it stayed standing, I thought Panny would kind of pull away pretty comfortably. So I like Raquel here. She's minus 130. I'm honestly surprised she's not been bet out to maybe minus 160 area. I don't know what it is. I mean, you look at Raquel's record, 11-8. Maybe maybe that's playing a factor. I don't know, but I just think Panny's boxing centric approach is not going to be enough for her here. And I know Raquel's 11-8, but you look at the losses. She lost to Holly Holm twice, Jermaine Durandamy, Amanda Nunes. It's not like she's been going out there losing to just anyone. She's all her losses are to good fighters. So I'm going with Rocky here to win this fight. It's likely going to go to a decision, so probably decision. But yeah, I like Rocky. Last fight on the preliminary card is Tafon and Nchukwi versus Mike Rodríguez. I'm going to pick Mike here as the underdog. I'm really not confident because Mike is a bit of a round one merchant. So if he doesn't put him away in round one, which I don't think he will, I'm not overly confident when you look at Mike's record and see that the guy doesn't win decisions. He kind of wins in round one or he's bust. But Tafon's moving back up to light heavyweight here. So he fought Contender Series at light heavyweight. Then he had his 2 fights in the UFC at 135. Now, Jamie Pickett is very similar to Rodríguez. Southpaw, similar frame, but obviously he's a middleweight. Mike's a light heavyweight. And it was a good performance against Pickett, but I do feel Mike's a better fighter than Pickett. But then he had the fight with Park, and it just wasn't a good look. He looked a bit slow, a bit cumbersome. He had a reach advantage, but he was getting out jabbed by Park. He just didn't look great in that fight. And ultimately ended up getting taken down and in the 3rd round and took a bit of a whoopage. But I do trust his durability more than I trust Mike's, and his ability to fight at the same pace for 3 rounds. Mike's just maybe not Mike's durability, but Mike's a way to measure himself through 3 rounds. He just slows down in fights. He was very unlucky in the Ed Herman fight. That should have been a win, but still, it just shows, a little bit of flakiness. The Danilo fight, in hindsight, was a tough fight for him. Pure grappler. He struggled there. He's going to get a stand-up fight here. It's going to be on the feet. But it's just how he approaches the fight through rounds 2 and 3. But as an underdog, I've probably got to lean him here and pick him because he's got a big reach advantage. The guy just needs to use his range here. I do like the over on this fight. The over set at 1.5 at about minus 160. I don't think Tafon is a big puncher really. Don't get me wrong, I wouldn't like to be hit by him. I'm sure he cracks hard, but you look at his fights, Contender Series, it was a head kick KO. When he hurt Pickett, it was a head kick again. Low percentage stuff. He likes throwing the head kick when he exits the clinch. So Mike's got to watch out for that. But Mike is, really tall. I think he's like 6'4", 6'5". So he's got to watch for that. But just in terms of, I've not really seen this devastating punch power. I didn't go back and watch the William Knight fight, but if I remember the William Knight fight, I think Knight goes for a trip and messes it up and he ends up in the turtle position, and Tafon's just throwing some ground and pound from the turtle position and it was stopped. I think in my head I had it down as a premature stoppage. So yeah, I'm not buying into him being a huge puncher here. So that kind of makes me like the over. I think he's pretty durable. But I think if anyone finishes in the first half of the fight, it's probably going to be Mike when he's at his most dangerous. But, if you are betting him, you might need to win the first 2 rounds because he's just not someone that goes out and wins decisions. But I'm going to pick Mike because he's the underdog here. I don't think Tafon should be the favourite. I think it should be more like a pick 'em. But Mike's only a marginal underdog, so it's not like there's tons of value there in my opinion. I think we're finally onto the main card. Have a quick look. We are. So first fight, we've got Joaquin Buckley taking on Antônio Arroyo. Look, I can't bet Buckley at minus 200 or so, whatever he is, but I'm not betting Arroyo either. Really bizarre. Arroyo is a huge middleweight, massive guy, but it's actually Buckley who's got like a 3-inch reach advantage here. Arroyo is the type, kick heavy. He likes to kick from the outside. Buckley, very much a high pressure guy. He's going to get inside. He's going to throw hard and heavy, and he throws a lot of volume. And his cardio holds up. He's got really good cardio, Buckley, especially when you consider the style he fights with. I think it's going to be a stand-up fight, and I just can't see Arroyo winning a decision here unless he can really hurt Buckley a couple of times. And I'm not overly sold on Buckley's chin. He has been knocked out a few times. He is coming off a knockout loss. He got knocked out by Kevin Holland. He got knocked out, I think it was in an LFA as well. It's partly to do with his style because he's so aggressive. But yeah, I'm not sold on his chin. But just with how Arroyo fights, I just feel if he gets a knockout, it's going to have to be something fairly low percentage, like a head kick. And I know Buckley's coming off a head kick knockout, so anything can happen. But I mean, how many fighters in the UFC have lost back to back by head kicks? I just feel it's going to be it has to be something low percentage like that because Arroyo's hands aren't great. And I mean, he's never been knocked out, Arroyo. I can see this fight going long. You'd be a brave man to bet it, to bet the over, to bet decision, because they're going to exchange heavy leather. And with the way Buckley fights, he has got power. It's going to become steaming in, throwing combinations. But I give him the power advantage, Buckley, and I also think just in terms of winning minutes on the feet, I think the advantage clearly goes to him. The Royal did mix up some takedowns on his Contender Series fight, and he's had difficult fights. His first couple of UFC fights, he's fought grapplers, that have just been able to shut him down. He will at least get a stand-up fight here, but I just think Buckley, I just think his style where he likes to fight on the outside along with his kicks, I don't think it meshes well for him against Buckley's kind of pressure, high volume style. So I'm going with Buckley, but I'm not betting Buckley because his chin worries me, and -200, I'm not paying it. Next fight, we've got Christos Giagos against Arman. Don't know how to say Arman's surname. Regular listeners know I'm terrible with surnames. I can't pronounce Jack, so I'm not even gonna give you guys a laugh today. Sorry. So Giagos. Look, I like Giagos. He's a solid fighter. But the problem with Giagos is, and it is literally about as predictable in life as death and taxes, his gas tank just sucks. He's got about a round and a half in him, and then the gas just goes, and it's every fight. This isn't like, he might have one dodgy fight and then he'll be all right. It's just so predictable every time. It just happens. So it makes it very, very difficult to back him. But Arman is like -800 here. The line is too wide because let me just double check this, but I know Oliveira stopped Giagos, but I'm pretty sure Giagos is a pretty durable guy. Josh Emmett stopped him. I do remember that fight. That was a bit of a war. He got hurt about 3 or 4 times badly in that fight before finally succumbing. So, he's not easy to put away. Gilbert Burns did armbar him. A couple of submission losses here. Let's just see how many KO losses has he got. He's only been KO'd once, so that was Josh Emmett. He has got 4 submission losses. So yeah, he's not. I'd be very surprised if he gets KO'd. He's obviously a tough guy. Like I said, the Emmett fight, and he was hurt numerous times in that fight and still fought through it. But yeah, look. There's no value on Arman, -800 for a fight that he's probably, if he wins, it's going to be by decision. It's just bonkers. If you're betting -800, you at least want to be very confident the guy can finish as well as win a decision. But you might be banking on a decision win. And look, Giagos starts well. There's no guarantees Arman wins round 1. All it takes is Giagos to win round 1, which he's fully capable of when he's fresh. And then if his gas tank can just hold together enough to eke out round 2, then suddenly you're staring at round 3 and Arman needs a finish. So I honestly, if you're betting Giagos here, good luck to you. I honestly think that I don't know who. I just know he's going to gas though. It's the problem. It's just gasses every fight. Every fight he just gasses. Arman, he does look like a guy that's improving. He dominated Frivola. He looked good against Hamos. But I just don't think he's going to finish. I think it will go to a decision. Look, the line is too wide. When I'm saying someone's going to win at -800, they need to, it needs to be a fight where they could win at any moment. I see it going to a decision. Or if Arman does win inside the distance, it's when Giagos is really gassed, like maybe round 3. There's just no value. Look, I haven't bet Giagos, and I'm not going to because he's a gasser. But the line is too wide. People are obviously piloting the hell out of Arman. So I'm gonna pick Arman. I just think the gas tank is too much of an issue. But there's no way you should be playing it at this price. There's no value in my opinion. You'd have to go out and absolutely slaughter Giagos to cover that price. It would have to be a massively dominant victory by decision, or you'd have to go out and put him away at some point after dominating him to justify that price tag. And I don't see it. Giagos he's a tough guy. He's a good fighter when he's fresh. But I'm still going to pick Arman. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend playing it. Decision line's probably rubbish. Probably minus money. Let's have a quick look. Arman wins by decision. Yeah, -120. I knew it was going to be something like that. Just pass, guys. Just pass on that fight. Take my advice. Next fight on the main card, we have Mandy Bohm. Don't know if I'm saying that right. German fighter taking on Ariane Lipski. So Mandy, I take this fight a couple of weeks ago, so my memory's going to be a bit hazy. But when I watched a couple of her fights, she had John Kavanagh in her corner. She was training at SBG. But when I looked at her Instagram, it looked like she was training in Germany. I think it was Germany for this fight. But Lipski is the favourite here, which, let me just double check I'm right in saying that. Mandy was the favourite, and then, I was hoping, I remember when I'd done the tape, the line wasn't out yet, and I was hoping if I got Lipski at my +150, I'd probably take her, but she's the actual favourite again. And it's just tough, man. I don't know why people are betting her into a favourite. Like, she seems to get so much respect from the bookies. I haven't checked, but has she ever been an underdog in any of her fights in the UFC? Actually, she wasn't she? I bet De La Rosa against her. She was the underdog there. I think she might have been against Shevchenko as well, actually. Have a quick look. It says it was an even line. I can't remember. I bet Shevchenko there, but I thought I bet Shevchenko as a favourite, but I can't remember. Saying that she was only a slight favourite against Luana. Maybe, the bookies wised up a little bit, but I just can't bet her as a favourite. I don't think there's any value on Mandy. Lipski does have really good striking. Her weakness is the takedown defence, and my memory's a bit hazy on this fight, but Mandy did mix in takedowns in the fights I watched. I remember I wasn't overly impressed. Memory's coming back a little bit now. Let me just bring up her record. I remember I wasn't impressed at all against, I think it was Jade Mason Wong was a fight I watched, but then she ended up hitting a couple of decent takedowns, and it just gave me pause. And then I watched her last fight in Bellator, and I mean, the girl she was fighting was well overmatched, but she did hit some takedowns in that. What I wanted to see from Mandy was she was just to bet Lipski at +150. This is before lines open. What I was hoping for was that she was just a striker, because Lipski is very good on the feet. But yeah, she does mix in takedown, and I'm just not sold on Lipski's takedown defense at all. And she's so bad when she's underneath. I mean, she got stopped by Shevchenko, she got stopped by De La Rosa. So I've just got zero faith in her. So I'm going with a dog. I don't think there's any value. Pick-em-ish type fights seem right to me. Lipski's only a very slight favourite, but for the sake of a pick, I'll pick the dog here because I've given up I never really had faith in Lipski from the get-go, to be honest, but I've got no faith in her. She is still at American top team. Got to think she's drilling the hell out of her wrestling, but it's not even that. It's once she's stuck on the bottom, it's just neglected it for far too long, and it's cost her. Next fight, so this is a late replacement fight. Nikolas Motta taking on Cameron VanCamp. I haven't done tape on this one because Cameron's only just come in. I did have a bet on Motta against Jim Miller. A little bit blind in the sense that takedown defense, ground game unknown. It was partly a fade on Jim Miller, having to win fights in round one these days. But Motta's like minus 300 here, so I'm not really interested. But when I see that Cameron lost to Bobby Volker just over 2 years ago, it does not fill me with much confidence that he's going to be able to go out and beat Motta. Motta's a good striker. He's quite basic, but he's one of them savages on the feet. Just have a look at how Camp wins his fights. He's got 4 KO wins, but most of his wins are by submission, so he seems to be more of a submission guy. But yeah, that loss to Bobby Volker in 2019 is just a big concern. So I'm going to pick Motta, but I haven't taped it, and I probably won't bother because of the money line. Next, we've got co-main event. Ion Cutelaba taking on Devin Clark. Now look, I'm not overly sold on Devin Clark as a fighter. I've said this before, but he did show some grit, which I thought he was lacking against Alonzo Manyfield. He was in big trouble in round one. He had a problem with his eye. It looked to me like, he's quitting here. But look, he manned up. Alonzo slowed down and he gritted out the decision. So maybe I underestimated him in that sense. It's just, when you go back and watch his fights, he's not really interested in engaging on the feet. He doesn't like being hit. But, he did man up in that fight. I don't like it though. He's got 5 UFC losses. Every single one he's been stopped in. Alex Nicholson knocked him out. Blachowicz choked him out. Rakic knocked him out. Spann guillotined him in a fight where he was just backing up the whole time. And then last fight, he took Anthony Smith down and then got triangled. He has got decent wrestling. He is a decent wrestler. Couldn't really get Alonzo down, but quick takedown on Anthony Smith. Townsend, he dominated, but he was completely overmatched, and he won a decision against Darko Stozic. But he's not a finisher. All these UFC wins are by decision, and even when you go back and look at him pre-UFC, he's got a TKO in RFA 37, but that's a hand injury. So the guy's obviously quick because he's broken his hand. So to go back to his last actual finish in a fight, it's his 3rd professional fight against William Vincent 6.5 years ago. So the guy's just not a finisher. He's pretty much seems like he's decision or bust. Seems unlikely he's going to be able to stop Cutelaba. Cutelaba's going to come out strong. I like that Cutelaba's changed things up now. He's now at, I always get the 2 camps confused, Extreme Couture or what's the other Vegas camp? He's at one of the 2, but it's definitely a good change for him, because before I think he was training in Moldova in like a sports hall. It was quite amazing that he's come as far as he did. He always comes out strong around one. I thought he looked better against Jacoby than he had done. Now, he did slow down. He did drop off after that hectic round one that he got a 10-8 on the scorecards to get the draw. But he didn't die completely. His cardio it was decent enough. And I mean, even Jacoby in round 3 was the one that was going for takedowns and clinching up. So he looked a little bit better. His striking, he was still landing stuff on Jacoby. He wasn't completely outmatched on the feet. So I am seeing some improvements from him there. He had the tough back-to-back fights with Ankalaev where he was just a bit overmatched. But he can be taken down, Cutelaba. You go and watch the Antigulov fight. Antigulov got, I don't know, like 3-4 takedowns on him pretty easy. But he was popping straight back up to his feet. He did stuff all the takedowns that Glover was trying. When they fought, he ended up slipping. He threw a knee and slipped, and that's how Glover got on top and and got the finish. So, Devin does have solid wrestling, but I've got to say I did like how he worked back to his feet, especially I think it was like the first takedown, and Tigilov got it right in the middle of the cage, and Ion worked all the way back to the fence and got back to his feet. But what you have to remember with Ion is if you are taking him down and making him get back up, his cardio is a question mark. And, Devin Clark's cardio is good for a 205er. So he's definitely got the cardio advantage. So if he can survive round one, the fight could get interesting. But I just don't like that he's been stopped fighting all of his 5 losses. I think all of them are round one, besides, I think one was round 2 against Roundtree against Spann. So I have to go Ion. I just think, the guy's a fighter. I think it's going to be the difference here. He's a finisher. So I will go with Ion Cutelaba. Main event is Anthony Smith taking on Ryan. So Anthony's pulled off back-to-back wins after things were looking a bit ropey for him. He took that awful beat down against Glover Teixeira. Then he lost to Rakic. He didn't really take any damage against Rakic, though. He lost a 3-round decision, but it was mainly him on his back. Rakic didn't really do a lot from top. Now he's pulled off back-to-back wins over Devin Clark and Jimmy Crute, so he's righted the ship. Light heavyweight was definitely a good move for him. I mean, Anthony's got a lot of KO losses on his record, but he is pretty durable these days. Glover stopped him. Horrendous beatdown that was, but he took a lot of punishment. That was, eventually the referee stopped the fight. I think his corner should have pulled him out way before, but story for another day. But besides that, he's not really been getting finished. It's been a while, Last time was down at middleweight against Thiago Santos, which was like about 3.5 years ago now. And when you go back before that, you've got to go back a long way for his last TKO loss. He was a few submission losses, but he hadn't been stopped prior to those 2 fights by punches. You had to go all the way back to 2011. So when you look at his record, and let me just bring up how many losses he has by KO. 8 KO losses. It's a little bit misleading. He's not chinny. He isn't chinny. And, you have to make sure he's not chinny here against Ryan Spann, especially early on. But, Smith's a decent fighter. And what he does have is he has a good gas tank. And he can finish whenever. He likes round 3 finishes as well from losing positions. He got the sub over Gustafsson in round 4. In a fight that he had come back into it, but it didn't start well for him. He got the round 3 win over Vulcan. I had him 2 rounds down in that fight. There was someone else as well. Hector Lombard, he was 2 rounds down to, came back and won in round 3. Andrew Sanchez, he was 2 rounds down to, won in round 3. So the guy's a finisher, and he can finish at any point. So that is something you've got to be really careful of. Ryan Spann is a lot more unproven than Anthony Smith. He's coming off of a quick knockout win over Misha Serkinov. Prior to that, he lost to Johnny Walker in a crazy fight. And before that, he had a very weird performance against Sal Malvi. He ended up being a split decision win. He was getting caught with Sam's right hook counter when he was coming in. He got hurt towards the end of the fight. Before that, he beat Devin Clark. Pretty dominant win against Devin Clark. Not a lot happened in the first round, but he was the one that had Devin backing up. What Spann does have is he seems to have a pretty solid grappling game. Like, he can be taken down, but he'll work back up to his feet. Like, he knows what he's doing on the ground, which it makes it interesting here because Anthony Smith's a decent enough grappler. Before that, he beat the corpse of Leo Nogueira. So it's an interesting fight. I've got to side with Smith, though. I just think the experience factor, durability, his ability to win fights early or late. I think that's a really useful asset at light heavyweight, to be able to pull out late wins, have your cardio still intact. So he might have to overcome some adversity early. Spann is dangerous early, but we have seen Spann put away. Johnny Walker fight, he got put away. Carl Robertson, he got put away. Just came back further for his record. I mean, they're the only KO losses he's got besides a real early one in his career. But Anthony Smith's a KO and submission threat, so the line's come down a little bit. I haven't pulled the trigger on Anthony Smith, but it might even be a better live bet fight because, as I say, Smith, he can be down in fights before he comes back and wins. And Spann, as far as I'm aware, has never been 5 rounds. How's his cardio going to hold up in a fight that goes 5 rounds? I don't know. So it might be a fight where you just want to. I mean, if you've obviously got a strong feel for Smith, you need to bet him now. But if you can live bet, I think the chances are Spann probably has a decent start because Smith, he can start slow in fights. Let me just corroborate that. I mean, the Jimmy Crute fight was the calf kicks made all the difference for him there. Devin Clark, I mean, he was taken down and, so he was losing the fight until the choke. But then saying that, he started well against Glover. I had him a couple of rounds up against Glover until Glover came into that. But Gus started all right. Vulcan was 2 up. Hector and Andrew were 2 up. It's always risky going in with a strategy to live bet because you think X fighter might win round 1 or there's a good chance of win round 1, and if they don't, then if the fight does go past round 1, Smith might be minus 300. But it's an angle to consider if you're looking for a bet on the fight or some kind of action, some kind of strategy. Might be something to consider. But I'm going with Smith. He's been bet down to about minus 160. I'm just not sure how this is going to look for Spann if it leaves like the first round and a half or so. I think the advantage starts to go with Smith then with the experience factor, and as I say, he's proven ability to finish fights in later rounds and to come back from losing position. So I will go with Anthony Smith. So that wraps up the card, guys. Good luck with your bets. Didn't pick a great deal of underdogs on this card. How many did we pick? I think I only went for a couple, didn't I? Just having a quick look through. Yeah, I didn't pick many at all. I picked Mandy, but very marginal underdog. Mike Rodríguez, marginal underdog. Yeah, there's not really any sizable dogs really on this card. Well, there's some big favourites, but besides that, all the lines are pretty close. And what else did I go for? There was another one. I think I picked Rong Zoo, didn't I? Yeah, see, if when I'm betting an underdog, I like to get a bit of a juicier line. These lines do all feel pretty accurate. It's getting tougher to find value in MMA betting. The lines are getting sharper. But they're the picks, guys. 15 fights. Hopefully they all stay together and we get 15 fights on the day. Be a long night of fights. Good luck with your bets, and I'll be back for the card next week.